Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Crespect Talks. And today we're going to dive into a topic that sparks a lot of debate: legal directories. Everyone talks about it. Most of us complain about it. There are discussions and rumors. Are they just a beauty contest, or is it an important strategic firm's KPI that everyone should take more seriously? So I'm thrilled to be joined today by two lovely experts. Jurgita Meskauskaite-Cilliersė, the former research manager, right, at Chambers and Partners, and now she's consulting firms how to build stronger submissions. And Stephen Revell joins us as well, law firm management consultant and officer at the IBA Law Firm Management Committee. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, and before we start, dear gentle viewers, we'd love to hear your perspective as well. So do not hesitate, drop a comment in the comment section. Do you think rankings truly matter, or is it a matter of prestige? Do not hesitate to share your questions. We'll get back to them as soon as we wrap this conversation, or maybe during. So let's start, Jurgita. Let's start simple. In practical terms, why should law firms bother with submissions? Why should they participate in this process?
Hi, Carolina. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. To come to your question and to answer it, quite amazingly, I never had to sell Chambers to anyone. Not when I worked for Chambers, and not now when I'm consultant. I never had to explain what is Chambers really. So that tells you something probably about, the world of legal directories and about the importance of legal directories to law firms. Really, in the end, it's very simple. Legal services are difficult to see through. I mean, it's very difficult to know what you might be getting, and you're paying quite a lot of money. So there is a need for some sort of tool, and legal directories is one of such tools, and quite an important tool overall. So to answer why, different firms, different jurisdictions will have different needs for that. There are jurisdictions where legal marketing is very, very limited. For example, former Yugoslavia, there are markets where, although they're very close and everybody supposedly knows each other, there are no sort of public data about, for example, law firms' income, for example, Lithuania. And then there are law firms who also want to work internationally. They want to show that they're capable of international work, and Directories is a good tool for that as well. So it's a range of things, but really, in the end, it's a tool. And does your firm need it? That's the question.
So it seems like it's like a market standard, right? Stephen, what's your take? What's your view on that? Is that a must for every firm?
I don't think it's a must for every firm. And I think my views have probably evolved over the years. I know when I was on, in a sense, the other side and having to submit directory to the directories, I thought they were the devil's own work and we should do away with them. And we can maybe I'll elaborate on that. But I think apart from a small handful of, we might call them the global elite, I think most firms do need, for the reasons that Jurga outlined, need to participate in the directory process. I think the additional reason I'd add to Jurga's list is, if your competitors are getting involved in the directories and you're not, then you're missing a competitive issue. And I think because most firms do submit to the directories, very few stand out, as Jurga mentioned, by saying, I'm not going to participate. I think most firms end up participating. I think the biggest issue for most firms is they accept they need to participate, but then don't do it properly. And therefore they don't get the ranking they would like and or would deserve. So I think the biggest danger in the whole directory process is to engage in some sort of half-hearted manner and then be upset with the result. I think If it is important to you, and I think it's important to most firms, then do it well, rather than complain because you've not done it well and therefore you've not got the ranking you want.
You mentioned it's like you were been complaining a little bit, right? The devil's work, right? So, do you have any like sweet memories about these internal process of preparing submissions? Was it more like last minute panic? Oh no, deadline's approaching, or was it like a streamlined operations? How do you remember it?
No, I think at Freshfields, I'd say it was a reasonably streamlined operation. We knew it was coming. We prepared for it. I certainly don't have sweet memories. I think the biggest issue, and it'd be interesting if Jurga's got a counter to this. I think the biggest frustration I had was each year it would be a different person that you were talking to at the directory. So there'd be a real feeling of constantly having to, let me explain about Freshfields Capital Markets Group, and then next year it would be, let me explain again. So I think that was a frustration. And I think also I was always mildly frustrated with the fact that the interviewer often, partly because they were changing so regularly, didn't really fully understand the industry. I think generally speaking, there was a low understanding of the industry. I think my classic memory, you asked me for memories, it wasn't a sweet memory. I was talking to this perfectly nice woman who was new to the process. So I had to, do the whole story. What was capital markets? What was Freshfields, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, oh, as a matter of interest, how long have you been at Directory X? Oh, I joined a couple of weeks ago. I used to be a journalist on Gardener's Weekly. And it was just that contrast of last week I was writing about chrysanthemums and I'm now writing about the legal industry. And for me, that encapsulated, I think, one of the big frustrations from a law firm perspective about the interaction with the directories.
Well, in defense of journalists, I'm a journalist myself, by background, but I'm a business journalist, so, probably a bit more focused. To answer the question about people changing. So I know Chambers very well, and I know Legal 500 reasonably well, and both of them have solid sort of senior level or mid-level management, whatever you call that, research managers, whatever is the name, in reality, who have years of experience. I was one of them. There are plenty of people in Chambers with 10 years of experience, and legal directors are not that old actually as well. So 10, 15 years is a very solid experience. So there is quality control in both of those legal directories I know about. So, it's not the person who's interviewing you who's making key decisions in the end. There is the level of supervision and insight. Also, hopefully, you didn't have to explain what capital markets is. And you don't need to write what capital markets is in the submission. So really, the way of, sort of preempting it, if you want to use that word, you explain your practice in the submission well. So it's all there. The call is not there to explain about your practice. The call is there to speak about a market, the events, the best deals. So as long as you have that solid background information in your submission, where the researcher can go back to, but that's also the research manager, that you are fine. I know it is quite sort of difficult,
Frustrating.
maybe full of frustrating, many words. But for those two directories I know of, there is this quality control in there. Although the person you're facing, there's always a first time, right? So you will see people who do it for the first time, but they have good support generally, and
On
you
the
can
other
counter
hand,
that by the submission.
Yeah, exactly. On the other hand, there's, a takeaway that you're speaking with a non-practicing lawyer. So your complex deal, your complex transactions that you've submitted, you have to explain them in human language, and you have to sort of bring a little bit of context. Why, a researcher who's at the same time, maybe, I don't know, in researching another industry, maybe another jurisdiction where deals are significantly higher, and you're coming from a small market where deal value appears low, maybe from the global context, but if you give in a little bit of like local context, why is it unique, why is it so big, and you explain it in not legalese but in human language, I think that's the takeaway to keep in mind, that they're people, they're journalists, they're not practicing lawyers. So those complex deals, and especially in capital markets, they have to be explained, well, maybe not for gardeners, but for regular businessmen. But let me pivot a little bit. So, Jurga, you've been on the other side, on the researcher side. Now you see more of like behind the scenes in the law firms. How, like, you're helping them with the submission. So how do you find your customers lately? Do they have some sort of systems in place, how they approach submissions, or is it more, do you find yourself getting called when deadlines are already approaching, they're tight, and it's a last minute panic? What's the trend?
Well, so I normally get approached when people are in trouble. If that's a good definition. Really, I mean, sort of last minute attempts are rare, and I think most of firms have a process in place. I get approached, whether it may be more efficient, less efficient, that's another discussion. But international firms, all of them have a process. Big local firms have a process and approach. Um, you know, that's kind of in there. I get approached when, they get deranked or, demoted, or, they can't seem to be achieving ranking, or when they are disappointed with the current results. So I think that's the biggest sort of group of law firms when they approach me is when they are, I will use the word frustrated and disappointed with results. And for some of them, it's a simple fix. For some of them, it's not such a simple fix. There is a need of process and approach and, sort of commitment. For some of them, it can be, quite easy. So that's when I get a call. It is a process. It's 8-10 weeks, really, from the start. And, if law firms don't keep kind of track of sort of best cases for certain practice, it gets very difficult, just time-wise, at the end. So, if you have a very simple process, just, have a list of your 20 deals that you are proud of. Then you can take it from there.
Mhm. Stephen, Jurga mentioned this, like when they are demoted, deranked, where they're not going up in the rankings. You're consulting law firms globally now. How do you see, like, what do you hear more often? How is there a strategy around directories, or law firm management are only worried then like band one, tier one positions are not kept well, and they're deranked, and then all of a sudden legal directories become a strategy? Or where do you see, like, what's the trend globally?
Well, I think the trend globally is to accept that the directories play an important role. And I think the smarter firms are saying, so how do we maximize our rankings in the most efficient manner? What processes do we need to have in place? So in that sense, I think it has become, for the firms that have thought about it, a more strategic process. I think there are still many firms who are in the frustrated zone, partly because they're not thinking about it and preparing for it, and have a last-minute panic and call Jurga. But I think many firms are being strategic in the sense of which are the important areas for us to be number one in, and let's make sure we put a lot of effort into those submissions because they're really important to us. And actually, let's look at some of the others and see how, are we putting in a submission because in our dreams we'd like to be a number one firm in this, but actually we don't really do anything in it. Are you using your resources properly? Are you being strategic? So I think being strategic about the areas you want to be in, and that it's realistic for you to be in, rather than saying we want to be number one in everything, which is probably unrealistic for most firms. I think then, and I mentioned the point before, if you're going to make a submission, it needs to be a good submission. It needs to be well written. It needs to draw out the points. And as Jurga mentioned, it needs to focus on your top most significant deals that support the contention that you are the leading firm in that area in your jurisdiction. And I have come across firms that maybe ask a particular partner to take a lead on a particular submission. And what happens is all the examples happen to be deals by that partner, as opposed to the best deals for the firm at large. And I think firms need to be cautious and guard against that. They need, as Jurga said, to be the top 20 deals for the firm, not for a particular partner. And I think some firms are waking up a bit late to the fact they do need some central control and central process around their submissions. And I think the most important point that, again, firms are slowly waking up to, it's, I'm sure Jurga would say, it's really, really obvious. The Directories, to my understanding, put a lot of emphasis on the client references, and rightly so. Too many firms put in client references without talking to the client. And at one level, that is madness, because you're either going to get a client who doesn't respond when the Directories ring them up, or, and I've heard this 2 or 3 times, so it certainly happens, that the Directory rings up the client, who then badmouths the firm and said, I'd never use them again, because they've not thought through what that particular client is going to say and had a conversation with the client. Do you mind being our reference point? And brackets, will you say nice things about us? And I think having that conversation with the client can be a real opportunity to develop that client relationship. We did a great job for you. We're proposing it as our lead deal in our Directory submission. Would you say nice things about us? It's a good conversation to have with a client, and definitely should be had. But I think many firms actually treat that as somehow a last minute thing. Oh, we'll stick these clients down, but we haven't had time to talk to them. So I think being strategic, being organized, and making sure it's a full firm submission rather than some random partner promoting their own deals.
So many pitfalls. I was just thinking, about you were saying it's like strategic priority, but is it, for whom it is a strategic priority? Is it like a partner's KPI that his or her team is ranked in XYZ, in this particular band? Or is it marketing, business development, PR's department, communication, however the firm is calling them? Whose strategic priority that is? Where should that, where in the map of the targets and KPIs?
I think it starts at the leadership of the firm. What is our strategic positioning, and how can Directories play a part in that strategic positioning? So I think ultimately it's the leadership. I think then it has to tear down. We want to demonstrate we've got the leading M&A practice, and therefore the people in charge of our M&A practice need to put in a good, strong submission to make sure we achieve that strategic goal. And you might find a way of measuring that. I think as part of a more holistic view as to how your M&A group are going. I don't think it should be the sole determinant of success of your M&A group that you get number one in a directory. I'm afraid it's not as simple as that. And I think, and again, I'm quite a fan of building in KPIs for business development professionals. I think it would benefit both the law firm and those individuals to be recognized for their contribution. But I think it's really difficult. And again, I've had many conversations with friends who are business development professionals about their frustrations of not getting partner attention to write a good submission. They've done a good draft, but the partner then never gets around to looking at it. And then there's a last minute panic. So I do think it's hard to have directory submissions as a KPI for business development professionals, but I think it should be part of their review process in some way. And if they've done a good job, they should be rewarded accordingly. But unfortunately, I think the corollary doesn't necessarily work. If you're not number one, it's maybe not business development's fault. It could be because you have a number 3 practice and all the partners didn't bother looking at the submission. So I think it's quite tough to make this a KPI. I think if I had to make it a KPI, I'd make it a KPI for the leadership as to, if you're saying strategically we want to be the number 1 M&A firm, how are we not number 1 in the directory rankings? You've either got the wrong people running the M&A group, or we're not getting the deals, and if not, why not? Or is that really our strategy if we're not being recognized for M&A? So I think I would use it most at that senior leadership level.
So many thoughts, so many questions. But before you move on, I'd like to, invite everyone watching, share your views. How does your firms currently treat legal directors? What are your struggles at? Let's join in the conversation. Referees, let's revert a little bit to that, if I may. As a former BD manager, I also have this painful experience of reviewing referee lists and making sure that the clients are being treated diligently. We don't want the same customers being bothered every year. Give us some feedback, participate in this research, participate in this research, and also give some comments to these directories, 7 of those, because we want to participate in all of them. So maybe, Jurga, could you comment about this referee contribution to the overall evaluation of legal directories?
Yes. So referees is key. Let's get this right. Referees is key to Chambers ranking. If you don't have referee feedback, you're not going to get ranked. It's as simple as that. Chambers will not rank firms or people without referee feedback. So whatever you write in the submission, if there is no feedback, you did not succeed at this round of submissions. So it's key. Now, I completely understand multiple points and frustrations as well related to the referees. Obviously, these are very busy people, and they have huge demands on their time. Ideally, you would want, referees that, so for Chambers, it has to be the last 12 months. So if you worked with somebody 5 years ago, that doesn't count. You're wasting, everyone's time. Ideally, this would be people from your best deals who worked with you directly. So not, CEO of a company, because people often think that, hierarchy is important to directors. It's not. What is important is a person who can share work experience in enough detail. How was it? Ideally, this is a company that works with several law firms, so they can, contrast and compare. If they came to you from another law firm, good news, happy days. Put that person in. Really, it's somebody who knows you and who will respond, even if they, knows you, likes you, hopefully, and will respond. So hopefully you get the free of those. If you get only one, then it will have to be somebody recent who will respond. So that that is going to be key to the team's ranking and to the people's ranking. Now some firms have so you said 7, right? I know firms that submit to 20 directories. I will have to say I was really surprised how many directories are there after I left Chambers. I mean, obviously I knew key ones, but not another 50. And really, so your question should be, why is it 7? And most of them will ask for referees. And now, if the differences and strategy comes in. So if I were to highlight 2 key things between Chambers and Legal 500, the ones I know best. So Legal 500 is probably easy to get ranked for a first time. It's probably easier. I probably shouldn't say easier. You'll still have to put in solid submission, right? To get ranked for newest teams, for spin-offs, for teams that are sort of have new hires and are in building, and all that kind of thing. Legal 500 ranks more teams. They look at the team and they look at the submission. Chambers ranks many more people. So as an example, which I again was a bit surprised, and I must say, for example, I was research manager for Spain. In Spain, Chambers ranks people in 10 categories, from EP to associate to watch, and there is a variation, sort of a scale of 10. So there's a difference between band 2 and band 6. Legal 500 puts not the same number of people, so many less people, and also they put them in 4 categories, so you won't get the differentiation between band 3 and band 6. They will be either in or out. So if your goal is to highlight more people and more partners, and I know that for some firms it's important. For example, there are massive firms in Spain that have huge practices, and for them it is important for even people retention, for people want to be recognized. So then Chambers is sort of your priority. Again, if it may take longer, and hence some worry and frustration, and then there are ways of looking what is wrong with a process or approach or whatever. And then if you are, let's say, IP firm, or litigation firm, there are specific rankings that look at that, at that area. So maybe that's your first step. That's where you should go. So again, doing 2, 3, 4, but not 7 may be a way. I also know that firms sometimes choose to provide referees to one directory and not the other. It is a way, but if you're only doing a couple of directories, maybe that pressure is sort of lowered a bit. In any way, referees are going to be key, and I think that is what a lot of firms get wrong. They think if you write beautiful submission, a lot of legal talk, and that is not a feature of beautiful submission, they will get ranked, and it is a combination of things. It's not only how well you can write. So hopefully that answers it in a bit long way. But
Yeah. Is there a difference of interview methods, like phone calls, emails? Are you aware of any recommendations related to referees? Well, how much they will be harassed by the directories?
Well, so I will, I will have to say, I'll probably a bit Chambers biased, right?
A little.
or Chambers method biased, but the difference between Chambers and Legal 500, one of key differences is that Chambers also speaks to clients. And, it's as simple as that. If you speak to someone, you'll get better information. Even if it's a very short call, you'll get better information than when answering, 15 questions. And that is, the truth. Also in Chambers, but also in Legal 500, so one of the interesting things is that we often hire multilingual people, bilingual people, or people who speak multiple languages. So they can often do interviews in multiple languages, and again, that gives a better information to Chambers. So it's a combination of things, but I think it really makes a difference, and you can see it in the quotes as well. So you often see a quote, they are good, and I avoided that kind of quote in the material I was editing in all
They are
costs.
very professional.
Professional is another favorite because it tells you nothing. It's an empty piece of information. It tells you absolutely nothing, and you can see that quotes in Chambers are very often more detailed, and this is because there is more information. They spoke to people. They wouldn't speak to everyone, but there is a proportion of people who will be attempted to be spoken to. There is a process of reminders, so there is some scope of response time, so it's not tomorrow. But yeah, if a person is willing to sort of to speak, then we should do it, and that will be the best way we can help your firm.
Stephen, if you could share some piece of advice how to treat your customers who could be your referees, for instance, at least marking down for which directory you asked which customer to be a referee, right? Simple as that. Any other
yes,
recommendations?
I think that is really important, that they know who to expect a call from. I think it does go to Jurga's point about multiple directories, and I think too few firms actually think about the correlation between the directories they want to be in and their client base. They don't actually think, well, who do we want to read about us, and what are they using? They're probably going to use Legal 500 and Chambers, and therefore most firms, I think, are very tempted to participate in both Chambers and Legal 500. I think there are some really interesting, what you might call specialist directories for certain areas that, again, if that's the strategy of your firm to promote yourself as a leading IP firm, then going into one of the IP directories, I think, could be a very critical part of that strategy. But is your client base, is your target client base reading that directory? So I think, as with many things, law firms do not talk to their clients enough about the actions they're then taking to either make those clients happier or to get more similar clients. And actually using your clients to help develop your directory strategy, I think, is often a missed opportunity. And I think once you've had those conversations, it's somewhat easier to say, well, we had that good chat about directories. I'm suggesting that we put you forward as a referee for this area and that area, but I've only given your name to two directories. One is X, one is Y. They may well give you a call. I think, as you outlined, Carolina too, to suggest to a client they're going to get 30 calls potentially from random researchers across the world, I mean, that would damage your client relationship. It's almost, how dare you give my name out to that number of people? And if you think I'm going to say nice things about you, forget it. It becomes completely counterproductive. So I think having a strategy as to which directories to go in, having a process to make sure you complete it well, but equally importantly, having a process whereby you identify the clients you're going to use for different areas, for different directories. Really, really important. And overloading clients with using them as directories can be very, very counterproductive.
Thank you, Stephen. I think we can count this as your one tip for the management with multiple bullet points, right? Jurga, maybe to wrap up, if you could give just one piece of advice, for law firms frustrating in this, or maybe, being unable to rank up. If you could just give one piece of advice without sunscreen, what that would be.
Well, one tip is always difficult.
Exactly.
Right, isn't it? If I have one very short tip for chambers, get your referees right. So get referees who know you, get referees who like you, and get referees who respond. For Legal 500, I would say present your practice team with clarity and sufficient detail. This is your chance to present it, clearly. Really, tell the researcher why he or she is reading about these particular deals, how your team stands out. This, if you do one thing, you focus on one thing for Legal 500, that is the clarity and detail of your submission. I'm not saying you shouldn't do a clear submission for chambers, but in chambers, referees is the key thing that is going to determine your outcome, at least in the beginning. And really start early and have a process. So that's more than one tip, but that's all important.
Exactly. And for all the writers, for all the contributors, for all the BD assistants, communication specialists, you're doing an incredible job. We feel you, we support you. And furthermore, tools like Crespect can help you. And before we wrap up, I wanted to show you that you can collect records about the deals, about their value, about the history, about the referees, not somewhere in a spreadsheet, but somewhere close to your contact information, to your case information, and recycle that. So if you'd like to learn more, do not hesitate to reach out. But I want to show you how we do it at Crespect. So for instance, when you log in and when you go and open a contact, you can see not only cases, time cards, but you can also see the history of CRM, of BD efforts, but also you can see the history of connected transaction experiences, those nicely written descriptions that often go to waste and you do not have it anywhere. So you can have the history of the deals. You can add the descriptions in local language, in English, add the value, connect who the referee is, and it sticks to that contact so that you have the history, who was called, whose contacts you gave. And furthermore, you can attach and tag the client information, the sector group, the practice area. So next time you need that nicely written description, you can simply filter it out and recycle, reuse it, not only for submissions, but also for pitches. So just a hint, there are tools that can help you. And with the history, with the best tips, and with the learnings, we're here to support you. So thanks for joining in. This was my 1 minute elevator pitch of Crespect, and that's why we're talking about it, because we care about the processes in the law firm. Thanks, Jurga, for joining with your comments and wisdom and experience in the legal directories. Thanks, Stephen, for sharing your perspective, a law firm manager's view. And please continue the discussion in the comments section. We'll get back and answer some of it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Carolina.